Let's put it this way. If you don't want to book yourself, you don't have to. I'm just going to talk to you.
Can you hear me, Julie? Julie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. I have to share this space with somebody else presenting. And it's just you so far.
Well, see, I haven't once they know it, yeah.
Hi, Jason. Hey. I'm sharing presentation space with Lonnie Hall, and he says he's going to try to be quiet.
I'm sure that'll be perfect.
Let's see. Let me turn up the volume. Let's see here. There's nobody in my section yet at all. It's just you two on Zoom.
Okay, let's go and get started.
But I'm gonna go ahead and start. Is that cool? Okay. Let's see if anybody else is coming in. It would have been more fun. Oh, I got Judd. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. Can you hear me over Lonnie talking? Yeah, it's okay. Okay. All right. So I'll start off by saying, okay, so I'm Stacy Lischke, and this is my second year at Lakewood High School. I came from Snohomish, 15 or 13 years at Snohomish, and then I transferred to Lakewood High School, and I'm restarting the FFA program, an ag program that kind of died out. So are you joining us? Oh, we have 2 participants. Yay, we work together. That thing there. Okay. We're cool. Just gonna be us. All right, cool. Judd and Julie and Jason. Let's see what else we got here. Sweet. See if anybody else is coming. Okay, they're going to Tower Gardens. Okay. Here we go. All right. All right. So Lakewood High School. So there were agriculture classes that needed to be put into place. And so I needed to come up with an equivalent of Science 11 is what they called it. And they didn't have any curriculum for it. All they said was Science 11 was chemistry and physics and engineering. And so define frameworks and write something like that. And I want to know if you've ever heard of Mark Rober, YouTube guy. Oh, I need to record this. I can't have to record this. Pause. Oh, you're
It is recording.
I'm recording. There we go. Okay, cool. All right. Are you engineering? Come on over. Yep. Grab up a little packet there. Yep. Yeah. And you know what? Since we have so few, you guys can have your own. Okay. Let me grab one more here. Okay. Mark Rober. That's who I'm talking about here. You guys know who he is. I'm Stacy Lischke. Stacy Lischke. Yep. This one's mine. You can have that one. All right. Okay. So this is creative engineering in ag, and this is inspired by Mark Rober. Do you know who Mark Rober is? He's a YouTube guy, YouTube star. No? Okay. So the kids know who Mark Rober is, and you may know him because he did like a glitter bomb prank with a package thief, and they get the package and the glitter bomb explodes and glitter goes everywhere. He's also known for engineering these really cool things, a squirrel obstacle course, because his squirrels, 4 squirrels in his yard, were eating all the bird feed, and he's an engineer from NASA. He worked at NASA, and he helped put the Mars rover on, he built the rover. He also worked for Apple. Okay, so he is an engineer, but his son is on the autism spectrum. And so he talks differently and he teaches differently than other people. So he actually talks to the level of our students. So if you watch any of his videos, he's talking to the average person. So he has a month-long 30-day creative engineering class that you can take online. And I signed up to take the class. I didn't finish the class because I can't take a class and also teach the class at the same time. So I was inspired by some of the things that I was learning in his 30-day thing, and I stole some of his ideas, which I do anyway, but it makes sense in the way that he is laying it out for me. Okay. So over there, I have this thing. It's called Brainstorm Research Prototype Final Build. Big robots pop footballs. And that's what he always talks about. And so he uses really cool color cards all the time to brainstorm. So take out some cards here. You guys don't have to do this. We can show you what this is going to look like. Take out 3 yellow and 6 of the blues. So we're taking out color cord here. We have different sizes one here. And the first, line it up just like we talked about. Just kind of seeing if they're Now, you guys can introduce this to your students by bringing up any Mark Rober YouTube thing, anything you want to show any clip of the squirrel obstacle course. It's got hydraulics, there's some electrical stuff in it, there's all the science stuff in it, but he uses real things like food and art and games and fun and baking, really creative ways to do engineering. And so he goes through the whole process in the class, and you watch him for an hour go through, and he writes on every single card. That was one of the longest things to watch. But if you just get your kids into the brainstorming process, then it makes more sense just to get them going. He did 8 or big cards. We're doing 3. So the first card is these guys are all scenes, and the topic I want you guys to think about is food. Anything to do with food. Okay, it could be obtaining food, it could be making food, it could be growing food, giving food to pets, it could be getting food at the store, it doesn't really matter. So the first card is the scene. And so the scene is like grocery store or pets. And you can write down anything you want to for your scene. And since I've already done this and I've watched my kids do it, I'm going to write down things that I know that the kids did successfully. Okay.
So right. Food stuff or what?
Anything having to do with food.
So it's just a hypothetical theme.
Yep. It's a scene of where food exists. Okay. So I'm just going to write pets. Pets could also be livestock. Okay. It's giving your pets food, getting it somehow. Another one is going to be in the car, because most of us eat sometimes in the car, right? So like drive through, whatever, in the car. is what I'm going to be writing for my scene 2. So I've got pets, that's backwards for me, in the car. And then in your gaming room, if you want to eat snacks while you're in your gaming room. Okay. Okay. So any 3 scenes, and you can do as many of the scenes as you want to. Once you come up with the scenes, any scenes, then you start thinking about what are the problems that with getting food in those scenes, right? So these are all problems. Problems or issues with feeding or with whatever. For instance, for pets, every time I walk by my cupboard, the dogs or the cats want treats. That's where the dog treat thing. So if the problem is that they're behind closed doors, I don't have access to it. There's whatever. So to be creative in your brainstorming session, but you're brainstorming different problems that have to go with the scene. So the treats are behind closed doors, which means I have to open the door to get to it. There's a problem. I just don't have access to it. In the car, there's problems with food in the car, like where do you put everything when you go through the drive-through? Where do you put your sauces? Where do you put do you have enough cup holders, whatever? So like the part, where are you going to put your space to hold stuff? You gonna join us?
Sure.
Buddy, you can just buddy up with them. Are you joining us?
Yeah, I'll
All
just
right.
sit with Nicholas here.
Yep. Let me give you
So basically, I strongly advise you guys to sit down.
That's this one?
Okay. Right, so.
You're doing it. Okay. You guys need to do when you go to do this.
So we're starting off with an engineering project of describing a scene and then what is the problem.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have some students in this process who live in a car? The problem is that they can't afford ketchup. There's nuggets in, so
That's my big problem.
they engineered and built like one of those labels or cousins who but they built a cup off of it so they could put the nugget off of it. So they could put that was one of them. One of them did a protein bar shoot. There's like a tube that come down and they stack all the protein bars on it, but they didn't grab them.
All right.
There's a couple
Okay, you got a little problem. Do you have any problems yet? Find up with some problems that have to do with your scenes.
No, that's the third one.
The blue is any problems that happen with obtaining food, like in the car. This is the one I'm going to give you an example. In the car, you don't have a lot of space to put your condiments. Where do you put your ketchup packets? You know, there's issues with your garbage and stuff. Okay, so space to put. The problem is space to put condiments, sauces, sauce containers, dipping sauce for your McNuggets. Okay. I also have the gaming room. When you're hooked up and you're playing video games and you're all got everything on there and you want food, you have to undo everything, get out of your chair and go. So the problem is you don't have access to snacks when you're gaming sometimes. So the problem is you have to unplug to go get something to eat. Could be a problem. Okay.
And then you do that there. And you can see, you'll see it gets really red. That's what you want. You're going to take this.
Okay.
You're going to poke. And then you're going to start melting. And start putting the blood on each one, bring your things with you, and then start going.
Okay. All right. We would finish the brainstorming session and we would have a whole bunch of different things. And you guys could brainstorm with partners or whatever. But then you pick one of these problems that I'll come back over there. You could pick one of these problems that you want to address, right? And then start thinking of possible solutions. How could you solve that problem with that food? Okay. And so I put a little asterisk. You can put your solutions anywhere. If you want to build something that's going to solve that problem, you're going to do a mechanical build, and you can build it with cardboard. You can build it with any materials. This is like a really simple build to solve a problem having to do with food. Okay. Did you guys hear that? Okay. So
So it's not a B block, your A B. B blocks, B. None blocks, if you're going positive or negative, your blood work a lot.
Yeah, that's
And another one, AB, AB, positive is also another really good blood type to have. So everybody, whoever's the instructions, what you guys need to do. So this is your A, this is your B, this is your I. So remember, each one has A is here, B is here.
So in class, the one I liked the most was the girl said in the car, she had no cup holder. She had old truck or old car, and she had the cup holders that things fell through, right? So she had no place to set her dipping sauce for her nuggets. Okay, so what she did is she engineered. She took a vent clip. That's an air conditioner, a Febreze vent clip. And she took a Tupperware container, and she super glued the vent clip to the Tupperware container, and then she put it in her vent, and then she had to see if it was too heavy or too light, and then she designed this little cup holder, and it goes right there, and she puts her sauce in it, and then she dips her sauce, right? So she can have her cup holder for her cup. Okay, right? Super simple build, had everything at home, and she did it, and that's like the very first thing that we're talking about. Okay, so in the big robot pop footballs, this is the brainstorming, and then if you want to figure out how to solve that problem, you have to do the research, right? So she had to research the weight of the thing and how much weight her vent clip. She had to do different vent clips, how much, what kind of glue. She ended up with super glue. Started with super glue and ended up with hot gluing and just globbed on the hot glue. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. Okay, so in the class that I took with Mark Rober, he designed a catapult that would shoot snacks into his mouth at his studio so he could continue filming and snacks would fly at him. Okay, so when you're helping them design the prototype, which is next, you have to help them, give them constraints. Like, hey, in the shop, he didn't want candy flying at his head like the way you throw candy, right? So it had to be thrown from 5 feet away. There was a certain size candy that he didn't want big candy bars thrown at him, so he wanted a certain size candy. And then he wanted to be able to push a button over here and have it sprung to him. Okay, so he picked out his constraints, and that's what he built. And I did one in class. It was a $10 potato challenge about growing potatoes. That's a food one. So I told them that they had to figure out how to grow potatoes, and it had to be less than $10, and it had to fit in a 2 foot by 2 foot square, less than 24 inch by 24 inch, and then it could be of any materials. And so they started researching how potatoes grow and what do they need to grow and all that jazz. And then the kids started bringing in buckets and old tires and all those things, and they set them up, and they did their prototypes on paper, but their final builds they actually brought into class, drilling holes in buckets and stuff. And then they set out, we have 20 different ways of growing potatoes outside the classroom. And so when I see them next fall, right, so we're going to dump them all over and we're going to just calculate our potato yield. So I provided the soil and I provided the potatoes, but they had to come up with a container, and I'll water it over the summer for them. Okay, so that's that one. And then so the second time, the second build was about art. We had to make art, and we use Arduino. You guys ever seen these before? I'm gonna give this to over here.
So and we'll go over the assignment, which is the one that I get online. It's focused, it can actually
All right. So the second time, you don't have to do this. The second time I did the brainstorm, I said, you guys have to make art of something. And this was a little bit more challenging because I have never used these before. So these cost about 80 bucks a piece. I think so. No, no. Maybe they were 35.
These were 35, the other ones were $80.
Vice versa. These are the more expensive ones. I bought 10 of them. And I got them on Amazon. Okay. So this comes with, hold on.
make sure you glove up and you change your gloves between
Glove up and change your gloves in between. Okay. So this is an Arduino project book, and Lonnie. He told me to yell at him if he got too loud. Ag physical science. Yeah, it's at our school. It's a junior class. It's chemistry, physics, and engineering, and I just taught it last year, and so and it was all, it'll be the first time I'll try it in person.
So you want to go here?
Part of your frame units.
Oh,
Because we don't do physics in it. So we have a whole group of sophomores that, unless they take a shop class, they can't be in.
so we had we have a science 9, which is earth science. We have science 10, which is biology, and science 11, which is chemistry and physics. And that's it. And so I wanted to make equivalency. So intro to ag is equivalent. So it's earth and whatever science, and then animal bio. And then I created this chemistry, physics, engineering class as a third year science class so that we could have those kids, right? And then I use the framework. There's 2 sets of frameworks that are on the state equivalency for, and I have not, McKenna and I are going to talk. I haven't chosen which one I'm going to use, but we're getting it done here. But it will have, I'll share the frameworks with you. Happy to.
And I know you taught this last year.
Yeah, I taught science 11 last year. And as I was teaching science 11, and I was building this class. So I started I've been doing it all year. So when I do this in the fall, I have this all done, and then I'll tweak it and I'll share anything with anybody. Okay. So I started with project 1, and this was like, open this up. Kids had never seen this stuff before. And when you take everything out of the kit, everything is in boxes. Can you please put your email in the chat? Yes. I can do that. You want to do that for me? Anyway, so they start putting the circuit boards together. And then project number 1 is just getting to know your tools. And this other one's open, but basically they get to make cool stuff like this, right? And I personally can't see them with my contact in. I need readers. I can't read the numbers on this stuff. I really had a hard time instructing it because I couldn't see it. But the kids could see it really, really well. And it makes sense to a lot of them. And so as they're going through the book and they're putting it, they're assembling it all together on the correct numbers, right? They did fine putting this together.
So what do they make?
So I told them to make the first one is, I think you turn on a light.
Okay.
Okay. Project 1 is just getting to know your tools, and you're setting it up, and there's no code, there's nothing. You're just setting it up and you make a light go on. Okay. But project number 2 is called Spaceship Interface. Project number 2. And I was going in order. So I said, I need to learn how to do this. So I did project 1 and I did project 2. Spaceship Interface just told me how to put it together. But because I told them that you have to make art, I turned mine into a spaceship. So I took an old Amazon box beep, 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 and an old overhead thing, and I made a spaceship. Okay, so these light bulbs fell out today, but they would if it's plugged in, the red light flashes, they flash, and then the blue light. So when I push the button, it changes what flashes, and you can't really see it like you're over here going like this because they're not really bright. But because this is an Arduino project and I made art, I met my criteria. That's all I was looking for, right? So some of my other kids went a little bit farther and they understood the codes and coding. And I didn't. So they're in the book, there's instructions on how to write the code. And you write the code and you put it into the laptop, and then it has the program for you to run it over there. And one of my kids said, do you want to know how to cheat? And I said, well, yes, I do. So you can go look up Arduino project or code for project 2. And you can just copy it and paste it right in there, so you don't have to write the code, right? And then when you write the code, when it's in there, it's in your computer. So anytime you plug it in, it's going to work. Okay. So my boys were using this one, which is called the crystal ball. And you can program this to say anything you want, right?
These nuts coming in here.
What? Oh, no, these nuts.
I thought you said the boys.
The boys.
Okay.
That group was. This group was those boys. Okay. So they, yeah, all of them were like this. But anyway, I heard him say this. He wrote, "This is art." Because I told him he had to make art. So he wrote, "This is art." And I have a picture of it. And I said, that's not art, because all you did was write this. So all he did was take a piece of cardboard and he set it on top of it. And you push the button and it says, "This is art." Okay. But as far as I'm concerned, I think it's brilliant, right? They spent so much time putting this darn thing together, and they wrote the code. They also found discrepancies in the book, and the wires were twisted backwards, and so they figured out all the discrepancies. But this is art, works here. So that was project number 2, was electrical engineering. And then project number 3 was you could do mechanical and electrical. You could build anything you want to. And it was to either help support a good habit or to stop a bad habit. And this is, I didn't get to project number 3 because I was still stuck on this one. This took so long to do because I was learning it and all the kids were learning it.
How much cost was that?
We started with block. When we came back, we started with the 2-hour blocks. And it took 1 week to do the first little bit. It took way too long because of my clientele, but it took a couple weeks. Well,
Supposed to be the first time too.
yeah, I think it took I think it took 3 weeks to finish number 2. Yeah, but some of my kids, like, you can get spinny things, and in here, I gave them cardboard and all kinds of things. They use this, which goes onto a CD, and they just fold it over, and this spins around and it makes art. Okay, but
Is this like that kit can be used over and over, kind of, because that can, right? So some of those things you have to create yourselves again, but that's a one-time cost that you're going to use every year.
Yes. Yeah, everything was savable. And yeah, they had little baggies and stuff to put it in.
Yeah, you can
but,
always print those off like ahead of time. Just
yeah.
make more or something.
And well, these are only if you're just following the book. Okay. You know, but the kids that really liked it, they flipped through, and there's like stars for the level of difficulty. They went to the back, and they wanted to get as high up as they could to do the cool things. But there were spinny things. There's motors in here. I mean, they were trying to cut things with the motors and all kinds of stuff. But if you don't wire it correctly, it doesn't work. If you don't enter the coding correctly, it doesn't work. The name of the kits, Arduino. So, thank you. But one of the cool things that the kids made for the food one, PVC, about this long PVC pipe, and it had like an elbow on it, and it went into a cardboard box, and he filled it full of protein bars, and then he just stuck it in the corner of his car. But he just has a protein bar. So he took one protein bar and it just like self-fed. really simple. And so when they were talking about doing the research, that's where you can like elaborate on what science concepts they're going to have to look into. Like, are you going to use gravity? Are you going to use some other forces? And in the Mark Rober videos, he was talking about in his he references his squirrel obstacle course often. And he didn't know the weight of the squirrels, and he also didn't know how much force that the squirrels could take, because as he was trying to keep them from eating the bird seed, they had to go these obstacles. Well, one of them flung the squirrel. So he had to research to figure out how much force that a squirrel can take. And apparently they can take a whole G-force, just like crazy amount that they can really fly them. Also, he didn't know how, I know that's funny. I was like, what squirrels? The other thing was he didn't know which nuts they preferred, because they were just eating the bird seed, right? And so he put out all of these different nuts, and then he tested the which nuts the squirrels came to get. So everything that he did in the research was all going towards his prototype and his final build. And so all of the research that the kids would do, like in my potato challenge, they didn't know how to grow potatoes. They didn't know how potatoes grow at all of it. So any research is where you're talking about the science stuff that's going in there. But the engineering design is like all the same. But big robots, pop footballs is what he kept saying to help us remember that. Okay. I have here, where my mouse is, a video I can share in a second here. I'll share it. You can see it. I will share. This is the picture of the spaceship that's lit up there when I first did it.
Why did you have to use that plastic pipe and all that
I did.
drawn?
I just drew it, and then here's the one that says this is art. Oops. Scroll down. This is art. And then the other, oops. Mark Rober. I kept it away. Where's my? I want this one. I want, okay, the Arduino. I will go back to this and I'll share this guy. Maybe. So here is some information about the Arduino, and they have curriculum and for high school, and they have classes and things that you can take. Some information about the Arduino, and they have like some distance stuff that you can do, and they have some like certification stuff. Yeah.
Canadian?
.cc. .cc. And then another thing I can show you.
So if it has the yellow square on it, that tells you the RA can. If it has the blue.
Here we go, Mark. This is Mark Rober. This is creative engineer. You see that guy? Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, he was doing let's see, civil machine stuff.
Yeah. And so this is information.
I just wanted to see.
Yeah. Oh,
who is when you said the squirrel thing, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So
right. So build 1 and then build 2 is electrical engineering, and then build 3 is advanced techniques. And he talks about having the 3D printers and including CAD and all the other stuff. I don't have any of that stuff, and I don't teach any of that stuff. So if anybody had that, it would be kind of cool to include this stuff. And then there's the squirrel obstacle course. Oh, come on down. Oh, let's go right to there.
I use YouTube all the time at school too.
It's
excuse me, it says tire back.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this one. I saw the simple one. This one's way more in depth.
Think about it, this bike has it in the back. Stay over there. But if they make it take the time off before they get it the nuts, it's the whole time. Got details.
And after Hacker Marty had accessed the computer and lowered the ladder, Fat Gus followed behind and joined him in the vents. But in the process, a critical tool dropped down, which led to a lovely recreation of an iconic scene. And as a side note, they figured out the exit door pretty quickly, and they functioned as a one-way door exactly as intended. And now with the vents, it was Frank's time to shine. You can see here, he's just double-checking the actual air duct layouts to make sure they match the blueprints he's memorized. And once he's satisfied, he steps up, and as you can see, he nails it first try. You can just sense his confidence here. Contrast that with Marty, who's like, all right, I think it was a right, no, straight. Oh, was it left? Crap, I gotta go check the map again. And as a result, most of his runs would end up looking something like this. So here's Frank coaching him from the outside, and you can see Marty's a little defensive about it. So Frank hops in so they can work out their differences. And then with a little encouragement, he gets him going down the right way. All the while, Fat Gus continues to supervise. Focus, Marty. There you go. Which brings us to the laser maze. Here's Acrobat Rick's first approach, and he's like, yeah, that's us. And just as expected, he climbs on top of the tube, and he's like, yeah, I totally got this. When in fact, he didn't have it. In real time, it happens so fast, it just looks like chaos.
All throughout.
But if we slow down this second attempt, we can remind ourselves of how squirrels have mastered the laws of physics to always land on their feet. Did you catch it? The first is the locking of the head on a landing target in less than 300 milliseconds. If you go back and watch any jump from this video, that locking of their head is the first thing they always do. And the second is using conservation of angular momentum like an ice skater to pull their arms and legs in and out at the right times to rotate fast and then hold in the right orientation. Combine those two tricks with the flat body parachute and extending their legs at the last minute to absorb the shock, and they are perfectly adapted for living high in the trees. In fact, squirrels have been around for over 30 million years, and they've had to evolve relatively little in all that time. So then Rick's like, fine, I'll use the stupid tube like a normal squirrel. What is this? Oh, see, I knew this was sus. And here's Frank, who just watched what happened and therefore is appropriately cautious.
Which is, he didn't know anything about animal behavior.
But he hops right back on the saddle, and this time he nails it. And in the end, it feels appropriate that the mastermind, Fat Gus, was the first one to make it successfully through the laser maze, and then to subsequently make it to Fort Nuts. I mean, how Fat Gus is this? Falling not just for one decoy nut, but for both of them. Which paves the way for Marty the hacker to be the one to crack the safe, and as you can see here, he's pretty stoked about it.
So one of the other things he didn't know about, let's see, stop share. So we're talking about he didn't know anything about animal behavior. Fat Gus, he was talking about how he was at a family video, a family function, and his sister-in-law said something about nipples on the squirrel. And he said, I didn't know if they had nipples, that they're actually girls. So he had to rename Fat Gus to Gustafine or something like that. So he was just talking about how much he learned in just the research for building the darn thing. So let's see. Do you guys have any questions for me in the chat? We got my email. I got the Arduino kits on Amazon. And yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry this was kind of hard to do. Hope to see you guys next year in person. Okay. You guys have a good one. Oh, and you're welcome. All right. Bye, Jason.
What
Bye,
budget?
Julie. Bye, Judd.
What budget did they give you for that class?
Bye, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. I think